Greetings and welcome to Sanctuary. Today we're talking about this extremely fun Druid Shapeshifter Werewolf build that relies on Rabies so that you can poison your enemies, Shred to make sure you destroy them quickly, and Grizzly Rage, which is going to turn you into a werewolf instead of a bear. It's extremely good. Now, without any further ado, I just want to say quick words about the positive and the negatives about the build. The positive is, first thing first, movement. You will be blasting into dungeons extremely fast. This is probably the fastest build ever designed for werewolf. For druid in general, it's incredible. The second thing is very good damage. Bosses, even the butcher, if you play your cards well, you can literally one-shot the butcher. Really strong build. And the third positive is that, unlike the bear and pulverized, I guess many of you have already seen and tried pulverized, this build is actually extremely fun to play. I'm not kidding, it's extremely fun to play. And now the negatives. The two negatives I can list. The first thing, this build is extremely reliant on spirit. If you lose your spirit, you cannot do anything, and that's really bad. We're going to get to the nightmare dungeons at the end of the video. I'm going to explain which are the nightmare dungeons that you should avoid at any cost if you want to run this build, because there are types of nightmare dungeons that you shouldn't really try, because you're going to fail. First negative, extremely spirit hungry. If you run out of spirit, that's bad. And the second thing that I need to tell about this build is that the second negative thing is that the Grizzly Rage, once it expires, it's a bit tricky. So you have the most power in the Grizzly Rage, but it is not really there for good. It expires, it leaves you at about 20 to 23 seconds of the clock. During this time, you can still fight and you can be effective, but you are not that effective. So in a way, you are much stronger as a wolf compared to a shapeshifter. Okay, so let's talk about the skills. I'm using Rabies, I'm using Trample, I'm using Bloodhowl, I'm using Grizzly Rage, Storm Strike, and Shred. Why is exactly this particular selection of skills? First thing first, Rabies instead of Poison Creeper. Why is that? Because Poison Creeper cannot be used while your ultimate is on, and you're about to witness that I highly rely on my ultimate. So I prefer to have a skill that I can use during my ultimate. Another thing, Poison Creeper is an extremely good skill. However, you use it once, then it has huge cooldown and it cannot poison anything anymore. That's unfortunate, and I need all of them to be poisoned all the time. So I chose at the end of the day Rabies instead of Poison Creeper. I used Poison Creeper in multiple variations of this build, but in my opinion Rabies just works better. I have Trample. Why Trample? Because there is a way to make sure that you can use it forever. And if your ultimate is off, there is no other way to remove CC effects. It's like stun, freeze, whatever. So I can use Trample and I can use it for good. I can chain it for good. It's going to be free and it won't have any cooldown. I'm going to explain how in a second. Then I have the Bloodhowl. It's a pretty good ability. If you have specific legendary aspect, it can give you also critical strike chance, and you definitely require that. Also, it heals you. It almost has no cooldown with this particular build because it's almost active, and it gives you spirit. And spirit is something that you need. Also, Trample gives you spirit, but we're going to get to that later. And the last, Grizzly Rage. Grizzly Rage in this particular build will transform you, instead of a bear, to a werewolf, and you're going to gain insane speed in the process. So in a way, you're fast, you do more damage, and you are unstoppable. So that's pretty cool. You know, late game, when I say late game, I mean World Tier 4. If you don't have a way to become unstoppable for a long period of time, you're dead. So you're going to get stunned, slowed, then chained, frozen, stuff like this, and you're going to die. So Grizzly Rage, making you unstoppable, is very important. And I have a Storm Strike. It's not really that important. I just use it from here and there to transform back to human form and to make them vulnerable. And I have Shred, which is the bread and butter of this particular build. Many people have a wrong perception of Shred. They use it in a horrible way and then they say it doesn't work. Now, it's not really a crazy DPS skill, but if you use it properly, it can shine. So let's talk about the legendary aspects. This one, the Vasilis Prayer, I don't really require it for this build, but I reckon I'm going to use it because it's the best helmet I ever got for now. I don't use any earth skills with this build, but if you, for instance, don't have Vasilis Prayer, you can use, for instance, this one. You can use increased armor for 4 seconds when you deal any form of damage stacking up. That's going to be pretty good. The point is you need to be tanky, so any defensive gear will do. I don't have any preference for the helmet. Anything that gives you survivability will work. Next thing, the Mad Wolf's Glee. That's important because Werewolf is now your true form and you gain +2 ranks of all werewolf skills, and you're using 3 of those. You're using Rabies, you're using Bloodhowl, and you're using Shred. So definitely this one is pretty important to have. If you don't have it, it's not a big deal. Again, you can use something defensive. When it comes to the gloves, look at this. While dashing, Shred seeks out nearby poisoned enemies, instantly dealing 69% of the poisoning damage to them. Now, this is one of the worst mistakes that I did, and I want to say it now, because you definitely require this aspect. In fact, it is probably the bread and butter of this build. However, you shouldn't imprint it on your gloves, you should imprint it on your weapon. What I did when I was testing, I didn't really realize how important this thing is, and for some weird reason I imprinted it on my gloves, because I was testing stuff. And then I realized that it should be vice versa. I should have this one on my weapon and this particular imprinted aspect on my gloves, if I need this one at all. But anyways, you see where I'm going? You definitely require this dashing aspect. However, you must imprint it on your weapon. That's the main source if you're doing damage with this build. Definitely don't imprint it on the gloves, imprint it on the weapon. But you're going to witness that even though I did this horrible mistake, I'm still doing pretty good in the game. Next one. You gain 25% increased armor for 4 seconds. You already saw this, and I must get a better variation of it, but at the end of the day it works. So yeah, defensive item. Here, this one is very important. While unstoppable and for 4 seconds after, you gain 16% increased movement speed and can move freely through enemies. So once you are in a Grizzly Rage, you're going to gain speed, but that's not really that important, because the most important part is that you walk freely through enemies. Because if you don't have that, you're unstoppable, but if there is a corridor, a tiny corridor, and there are a lot of monsters, you just cannot go past them. You're going to get stuck and you have to kill them. That's really annoying. So if you want to storm through dungeons, definitely pass this one, because you're just going to destroy everybody, and if some trash group of mobs are standing in your way, you can just walk past them, and that's it. You don't have to kill them, you don't have to go around them, so that saves you a lot of time. The weapon. Don't imprint this thing on your weapon. I'm sorry, imprint, once again, the dashing aspect on your weapon. That's the most important thing in your build. Amulet, Grizzly Rage, now Shapeshifter into a dire werewolf. As a dire werewolf, you gain 36% movement speed instead of damage reduction, and 72% spirit cost reduction bonus. This is huge. This is absolutely huge. In addition, kills heal you for 10% of your maximum life. So especially if there's a lot of trash mobs around you, with this particular aspect you cannot die. And you definitely need this aspect in order to turn into a dire werewolf. Without this one, you cannot do anything. So this particular aspect is the bread and butter of the build. Another very important aspect for this build is Hunter Zenith, because look at this. Werewolf, your next non-ultimate werebear skill costs no resources and has no cooldown if you kill somebody with werewolf skill. So I kill somebody with werewolf skill, then I do Trample, it costs nothing. Then I kill another one with werewolf skill, cast Trample, it costs nothing, and I can change that forever. I'm going to showcase how this thing works in a second. And we have the loop of the rampaging werebeast. I'm sorry, the duration of Grizzly Rage increased by 4 seconds. Now, if you want, you can imprint this on your amulet or on your weapon. I wouldn't recommend on the weapon, but if you imprint this on your amulet, you're going to gain another 2 seconds of ultimate time. But this is not everything. Another important thing is that while your ultimate is active, you gain critical strike damage by critically strike with your skills. So at the end of the day, you can do hundreds of thousands of damage. I never did a million, but I did like 400,000. That was my ultimate damage that I did so far. And I know that the bear can do more damage, but this build is not really about doing damage. The damage you do is pretty sufficient, considering the fact that my weapon is pretty old. Look at this, level 68, and I have imprinted the wrong aspect on my weapon. So definitely with the correct aspect and with better weapon that I hope I'm going to gain anytime now, I'll be doing much better damage with this build. So when it comes to the sockets, life on your armor, I chose here to socket critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies. There is a way to make our enemies vulnerable pretty easy. We're going to get to that later. And we have skulls on our accessory, which is self-explanatory. And another thing I missed to mention, I chose those legendaries to be right here in the inventory because I intend to use them very soon. So for instance, once I find a new weapon and I imprint this aspect on the weapon, I would probably imprint the Bloodhound critical strike chance to the gloves, even though I know it's imprinted, but they're just talking about the aspect in general. So I would like to get this aspect and imprint it on the gloves. It's going to be pretty good because every time when I use Bloodhound, it's going to also increase my critical strike chance, which is very important. Another possible aspect that you can use if you don't have any of the others that I shown is the barrier. It's pretty useful. Another one that you can use is this one. Every time when you shapeshift, you gain 207 life. That's crazy. You can literally tank bosses, the butcher, you name it, without any issues. If you have this aspect, it's pretty good. I already shown this one. And the final one is this aspect. Why I'm showing it? Because you might have issues staying alive as a shapeshifter. If your ultimate is down and you want to use your other abilities while you're waiting for your ultimate to come back, you might get CC'd and killed. So if you cannot stay alive as shapeshifter, use this aspect. Is going to help you a lot. Alright, so let's talk about spirit boons and abilities. The spirit boons, when it comes to the gear, I got 10% reduced damage from elites. Here I got 5% increased critical strike chance and 30% critical strike damage. Those two are self-explanatory. When it comes to the wolf, I picked a 25% increase the duration of the ultimate skill, and the snake goes for critical strikes with shape-shifting skills heal you for 3% maximum life. So there you go. There is a lot of way to heal. For one thing, you heal once you kill an enemy. Remember, if you already forgot, this is the thing that heals you. Look at this. Kills heal you for 10% of your maximum life. That's huge. So shred kills you, and if you kill somebody, also it heals you. So it's really important to it's impossible to die with this build. I don't remember when was the last time when I died and I didn't luck, because sometimes I die because I luck. But that's a different story. All right, let's talk about the skill tree. Now, for one thing, I have Storm Strike. It gives damage reduction and makes my enemies vulnerable. Here I have Shred. This is the bread and butter of this build, which increase critical strike damage. I am having increased critical strike chance against close enemies. Apparently I'm not fighting from distance. I have increased movement speed, and I'm taking 9% damage reduction while in werebear form and 3 seconds after, and there is very easy way to do so by activating Trample. Now here I have the Blood Howl. Again, self-explanatory, I'm healing, and on top of everything, I'm generating spirit. Once again, you shouldn't run out of spirit. I took only the clarity here, because every single time when I go back to human form, I'm generating 6 spirit. Trample, just one skill. You don't really require Trample that much. More or less, you only need it to break CC, and in certain situations, it's just fun to chain it together with Shred. But if you want, you can reduce the skills in, for instance, in Blood Howl and put them in Trample. It's totally up to you. But in my case, I use Trample only for fun. I don't really regard it as a damaging ability. It's there to break CC, which is the most important thing, and sometimes to stun enemies. Here, Rabbi's pretty important skill. It spreads poison, and the most important thing, the poison spreads 100% faster. You need them to get poisoned very fast. On top of everything, Rabbi's actually applies vulnerable. How this thing happens, I'm going to showcase in a second. I took poisoned enemies slowed by 24%. Pretty good. It's going to help you a lot. Do not underestimate this. Poisoned enemies take 30% additional critical strike damage, and critical strikes with werewolf deal 23% of their base damage as poisoning over 4 seconds. So in a way, your enemies will be always poisoned. The Grizzly Rage, it is a must, because you must become unstoppable. Without becoming unstoppable, you won't be really that strong. Let's be real. And on top of everything, you're fortifying each second. More or less the only reason why I'm taking this ultimate is because I'll be unstoppable all the time, and this is really important late game. Quick Shift maxed out, Natural Fortitude maxed out, Heightened Senses maxed out, and Lupine Ferocity, I hope I pronounced it right. Every 6 wearable skill hits critically and deals 60% increased damage. If you manage to aim that correctly, you can once again almost... Let's be real, I didn't one-shot the Butcher, but he was left from 90 to 10% health, because I managed to trigger this one with another skill that comes from the Paragon Tree. That's pretty crazy. So let's go to the Paragon Tree. This particular glyph is, in my opinion, the best glyph in the game, and every build should have it. Now, whether this is the best place for it, I don't know yet, but I'm definitely working on it in order to get it to level 15. And when the time comes, probably I'm going to move it from here, but the point is, when an enemy is damaged by you, they become vulnerable for 3 seconds. So in a way, Rabbi's can make sure that the enemies become vulnerable because they spread and they are damaging. So once you apply Rabbi's, the entire group of monsters will become vulnerable. Crazy. Anything basically apply vulnerability. The only problem is that it happens once every 20 seconds per enemy, but that's more than enough to kill everything. So you're taking this not because the 12.6% vulnerable damage which you get as a bonus, but because every single skill of yours or attack will make the enemies vulnerable. crazy, crazy good. So I'm taking this glyph, I'm going right here. I'm taking this rare note because that's pretty important. You have to make sure that you never run out of spirit. So it increases my spirit and it gives me spirit on kill. So the more enemies I kill, the more spirit I gain back. Pretty cool. I'm taking also this note, that's very important. After spending 75 spirits, you do 30% increased damage for 5 seconds. Now, if you manage to aim this one, 30% with the other one which I showed you in the skill tree, is getting really nasty. The damage is pretty insane. So, make sure also to unlock this legendary note. It's very, very useful. I kind of didn't invest anything in this rare note. I think it's crap. Probably I can change my mind in the future, but for now, it's crap. Then I came here. 10% damage to poison enemies. Look at this. 12% poison resist, 4% maximum life. I'm yet to unlock those two. I'm not quite sure whether I unlock this one, but definitely I'm unlocking this one for additional 2% maximum life. And while there are 3 or more poisoned enemies nearby, you deal 45% increased damage. Another very, very banana Paragon legendary note that definitely you have to go for it. Very cool. So, 10% damage to poison enemies, 10% poison damage. Again, 10% damage to poison enemies, 16% damage to elites, very important, 5% damage to poison enemies, 8% damage to elites, 8% damage to elites. And then I just unlock my next glyph, and here I have 10% damage to poison enemies. Here I'm going to take damage reduction. Do not underestimate damage reduction, it's pretty important. So at the end of the day, in the next 2 levels, I will make sure that I activate the second part of the glyph, and I will go here. I'm not going to get this one, but definitely I'm getting this one. I'm getting this one. This one I'm not going to get. Probably I have to get, to get here anyway. So I'm going to get this one, this one. This I'll skip. I'm going to get this one, and basically that's it. Then I'm going to leave, and I haven't decided what I'm doing next. But at the end of the day, I have a few more. Again, this one, it's also good getting. I didn't get it because I wanted to activate the glyph, so I have to allocate 1 point here. So at the end of the day, if I have to summarize the Paragon tree, go for this legendary note. It's really important. Probably should be the first thing that you should do. As you can see, this is the first thing that I did. Then I came here, which made sure that I get 45% increased damage if 3 or more enemies are poisoned. It will also increase my life. It will increase the poison damage I do and the damage I do to poison enemies. And it will also increase the damage in werewolf form, which is the second glyph I'm using. If you're asking about the third glyph, probably it's going to be the poison one. Let me see this one. This is a pretty cool one because it gives barrier every single time when you're shapeshifting. Of course, a chance to do so, but it's a defensive one. If you have issues surviving, go for the poison. If you don't have issues surviving, go for somewhere else. Now let's see the build in action. Alright, so a common misconception about Shred is that it sucks because generally it's being used wrong. Now if I just stand here and then start striking them, I will do some damage, but you say, this skill is clunky, it is slow, and it takes all my spirit away. However, what is the best way to use Shred so that it actually deal damage? I'm going to demonstrate how it works on elites in a second. Once again, I tested it built basically everywhere, dungeons, nightmare dungeons, open world, Helltide, everywhere, apart from PvP. The only place where I didn't test is PvP. I also tested against bosses, and I tested against world bosses. So the best thing the best way to use it is just to poison, then wait vulnerable to take effect, and you just destroy everybody. This is how you use Shred, and this is how effective it is once they're poisoned and once they have all the effects that you require. Once again, the rabies spread extremely fast, and once they spread, they also apply vulnerable. So this is the time when you have to jump and destroy everything. It works on elites as well. The elites are getting deleted. The only elites that are being problematic are the suppressor elites. Those elites, in majority of cases, I cannot one-shot. The problem is though that once again my weapon sucks. I didn't check how much powerful I'm going to get. If I get better weapon, apparently for level, let's say 74, because I'm going to get 74 very fast, and with the correct ancestral legendary effect. So I would like to have this Shred seek out nearby poisoned enemies with 90% and multiplied by 2. So instead of 69, I'm going to have 180. That's going to be crazy. And then probably I'm going to also be able to one-shot such type of elites. Now, how do you make sure that your Trample is for free? Currently it's for free. Look at this. I'm going to do this, then I'm going to kill somebody with Shred. There we go. Then I'm going to do this. Then I'm going to kill somebody with Shred. There we go. Then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to kill somebody with Shred. I believe I did. And I can do that forever. You see? basically this is how you do shred for free. This is the best way to survive with this build once your ultimate is on cooldown, because you really require your ultimate in order to be effective and in order to make sure that you're unstoppable. Basically, this is the main reason why you're using it. So let's jump into Champion's Demise so I can showcase how this build works in action. Alright, so how do you fight in this particular build? Now I'm going to showcase. It's easy, just make sure they're poisoned. I'm just going to spread rabies. I'll activate my ultimate and then go straight into battle. There are certain elites that are going to die, going to get one-shotted, and it's a good way to showcase how incredibly strong this build is. This is how powerful you are when your ultimate is on. As you can see, I didn't even take any damage. Like, I'm fortified all the time, I don't take any damage, I'm more or less almost immortal, and on top of everything I'm very fast as a werewolf. Now I'm not fast, but if my ultimate is on, I am incredibly fast. And now how do you fight when this thing is on cooldown, which is more or less the same thing. The only problem, not the only problem, the only difference thing is that you're spamming Trample, you kill somebody with Shred, then you're spamming Trample all the time and you have Trample forever. Guys, the build is pretty cool, I'm absolutely loving it. Again, you'll be stronger in your werewolf form because you're unstoppable. And on top of everything, don't forget that in your werewolf form you're stacking critical damage, which you're not doing in your regular form. So this is the way how you use the build. Again, you can use a werewolf, just to move faster. Look at this, it feels like you're on the horse. So you can do this this dungeon pretty fast. And don't forget that I'm showing all this thing with very bad thing imprinted on my weapon and with the correct legendary aspect imprinted on my gloves. So if I got the same aspect with 90%, I could have imprinted it here for 180 in total, which is going to be incredibly good. And if this is the case, then I would imprint additional critical strike chance on Blood Hull, so that every single time I will do that on the gloves, of course. So every single time when I use it, I will also increase the critical hit strike, which I need a lot. So in a way, the only thing that you need to remember with this build is that if you have your wolf on, that's perfectly fine, you are on. However, if you don't, you need to make sure that you have Trample all the time. If you don't have Trample, you can get destroyed pretty easy. Okay, we have another elite here. I'm just going. I don't even need to poison, but I need to gather a very big group of monsters so I can kill them all at once. I don't really wanna. Okay, I'm going to kill this. Okay, there we go. There is somebody with damage reduction, which yeah, once he's dead, everything dies. So I don't even know what I'm hitting. They're just dying sample, like yeah. So this is how you fight once again in big werewolf form. Now once it expired, the most important thing is to make sure that your Trample is active. So I'm going to do this because they can, just like this, they can pin you down and destroy you. So Trample should be active all the time, every single time when you're fighting as a Shapeshifter. But as you can see, it's pretty viable and you can destroy everybody. The build is very fun, guys. I definitely recommend all of you to try it, especially if you're bored of being bear, and you can compare, you can say which one is better. I know that the bear does more damage, that's logical, but at the end of the day, this build has its place. I am really love it. And another few tips about how to play the game with this particular build. You have to make sure that both Trample and Blood Hole can generate also Spirit. So don't be shy, let's say, to use them every single time when you have an opportunity. Another group of elites. I'm going to activate this and kill all of them. Okay, this one took a little bit more punches. He was a tough guy. Alright. Yeah, it's a little bit more unfortunate if the monsters are not really gathered together. If they gather together, it's the easiest time ever. But if they're not, then it's a bit unfortunate. Anyways, okay, I'm going to kill a suppressor, which is my main suppressing problem. Here, the suppressor. All right, they're all dead. Good, and I'm full HP. I didn't take a dent. So yeah. Anyways, another thing I want to mention in this particular situation. Imagine that you for some reason you don't have any spirit. In this particular situation, you can generate tons of spirit by doing Blood Hole, and then you can do 2 Tramples. Okay, there you go. And if you have nothing when it comes to spirit, now you have a lot. So that's another way for this particular build to generate spirit. And let's kill the monsters here. Oh, there's a guy here that has to die. So they don't have shields. All right, there we go. They're all dead. And I'm full HP. I don't really like. It is so easy, incredible. And once again, my weapon sucks, and my legendary aspect imprinted on it sucks. Now imagine if I had the correct thing imprinted. That's going to be absolutely crazy. Alright guys, so I'm going to footage a boss battle in the end of the video so you can see how this build works against bosses. Literally they die in a couple of seconds, the butcher dies in between 10 seconds, let's go it that way. A dungeon boss dies about 5, 6, 7 seconds if you're doing everything right. If you're not doing everything right, probably 15 seconds. Depending on, of course, the dungeon. If it's Nightmare Dungeon 6, 7 levels above you, probably it's going to take more, but at the end of the day, you're not going to die against the boss, you're going to kill the boss. Is it the absolute best build against bosses? No. Is it horrible against bosses? No. And the last thing I want to mention is that if you want to do Nightmare Dungeons, you should stay away from Nightmare Dungeons with these particular affixes, Resource, Burn, because you're going to get wrecked. It is horrible. It is horrible for this build. So if you see Resource Burn, monsters attack from distance, burn 16% of your primary resource, just stay away from that. It's horrible. Avoid it. Alright guys, so this is going to be all for you today. I hope you found this video useful. Please let me know in the comments whether you like the build. And as usual, if you like the content, give me a thumbs up, subscribe. This video took a lot of preparation, a lot of time when I was testing stuff. But at the end of the day, there's a product that I absolutely love it myself. I totally enjoy playing this build. See you next time guys. Take care.
Perfect.